Greetings, BArcadians, and welcome to another episode of Gaming News Weekly. With your host today, me, Tabs, and my good friend, the inimitable Rich. Say hello, Rich.
Hello, how are we all doing today?
So yeah, we've got another episode of games industry gossip. Three fairly decent stories, actually. It was one of those weeks where you're kind of trying to squeeze everything in because there's quite a lot to talk about. So stay tuned for that. 3 juicy episodes followed by our hip fire, everything else roundup. But of course, before we get into that, Rich, let's talk about what we've mostly been playing this week. And make sure, if you're not subscribed to the channel, go and do that now. Ring the bell for notifications. But Rich, why don't you tell us first of all, my friend, what has been mostly tickling your fancy this week in the gaming world?
Hilarious. Actually a strange week. So we've been playing lots of together games. So Valheim we played together. We've played It Takes Two. We completed that on the weekend, I believe. Is that Sunday?
Sounds right.
Yeah, something like that. So we did that. And then following that, I started Oddworld Soulstorm, which I'm enjoying. It's quite tough in parts, and anyone who's played those games before will know that they're a little bit tough, but I'm really enjoying that. And I've also played a few hours this week of Gran Turismo online, playing some races, getting back into that a little bit. Definitely think I need to upgrade my... I've got steering wheel and pedals. Think I might need to add a stand because getting a table out and clamping it to the table is becoming rather annoying. So yeah, that's pretty much what I've been doing this week.
Were you dismissed into the Shadow Realm, mate, at any point?
I love it. I think I only put myself into the Shadow Realm by spinning on the same corner continuously, which was properly annoying. But there we go. What about you, Tabs? What diverse range of games have you been playing this week?
I completed Suikoden. Talked about that last week. Finally completed that. Nice to get that done and dusted. Literally just before we were playing, I was I was playing on Resi 2 on the PS Vita. Still got a bounty of games to revisit on that. What else have I been playing? I think that's about it, to be honest, my friend. I don't think... Call of Duty I play every week with a friend up in Cumbria. We just touch base on that. So yeah, apart from that, nothing else really. Missing It Takes Two, as we said. We completed it. Kind of a sad moment because it's such a great game. And we'll come on to it in the news. But yeah, there's a theme here, isn't there, mate? I think we've had a lot of fun with smaller indie style projects and games recently. You mentioned Valheim. And that is our last juicy piece today, something we're very passionate about. So shall we move on though? Shall we get this party started?
Just before we do that, it's very interesting, and you mentioned it very briefly there. We absolutely loved playing It Takes Two. It was such a brilliantly fun game to play, but it was real tinged. There was a real sense of like sadness when we completed it. It's just because we knew that, that was the end of the brilliant amount of fun we were having with the game, and it was such a strange, like, complete opposite like feeling to how it was playing the game. So that was an interesting feeling to have had having completed the game. So just showed it really was a brilliant game, and honestly, if you haven't played it, I really get out there and play It Takes Two. Anyway, Tabs, take us away into the news.
No, I think you're right, mate, and we'll get to the news, I promise. But no, I think you're right. You usually get a sense, don't you, with the game that it's run its course. You're ready for it to be done. You're ready to tie a bow on it. But with It Takes Two, you just wanted to keep playing it. You just wanted these puzzles to keep coming, and yeah, it was a sad affair. But anyway, yes, let's start off with the first story this week. So more Silent Hill and MGS rumours. So yeah, disclaimer, this will probably leave things even murkier and more muddy for you, BArcadians, by the time we finish this story. But this comes courtesy of Gaming Bolt. So they had this to say. Before Konami was rumoured to have licensed Silent Hill out to Bloober Team and a prominent Japanese developer, several reports stated that Sony was working on a new title in the series. Of course, there were also rumours of a Metal Gear Solid remake, which is separate from the recent report of the IP being up for grabs. As part of this convoluted stream of rumours comes information from insider Catharsis T on Reset Era, who states that Silent Hill is still in the works at Sony. However, they noted that the studio has changed and couldn't disclose the new studio due to personal reasons. Even more interesting is that several Metal Gear Solid remakes are in the works, with Bluepoint handling development. With regards to Silent Hill and whether it was being developed by internal Sony studios or published by the company, we're going to have to wait for more details. Unfortunately, when it comes to Castlevania, the franchise was in discussion, but that's apparently it. The insider noted that the information has been vetted by Reset Era's staff, but take it with a grain of salt regardless. With E3 2021 coming up in June, all kinds of rumours are beginning to circulate, like Kojima Productions reportedly in talks with Microsoft for publishing its next title. Have a sad. Stay tuned for more details and potential bombshell announcements in the coming months. So, Rich, headlines. Let's try and drill that down from all that murkiness there. So, we think Catharsis T is saying that Silent Hill is still in the works at Sony. However, they've changed the studio that's working on it, but we don't know anymore.
Strange.
Yeah. Metal Gear Solid remakes, multiple, plural, are in the works with Bluepoint. Of course, we know that they recently completed Demon Souls. Before that, it was Shadow of the Colossus. Are handling development there. So, what do you make of it all, mate? What does that sound like to you? What do you want to see come June 2021?
So I think it's really interesting, and I do. We're going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, so stick with me. But so we've heard that rumor that Silent Hill is still in the works at Sony, but is that the game they're saying the studio has changed?
Yes, basically.
Now,
yeah, they're saying the studio's been changed.
We've heard recently that of some disbanding of some studios, for instance, Japan Studios. Are these things linked? That seems like the timing could be linked. So maybe they were originally looking at that, and then they've decided to disband that and move it to another one. Bit of a strange one, why you would move a like a game in development from one studio to another. So I think that's very strange. But yeah, I'm all in for these Metal Gear Solid remakes, and we know full well that Bluepoint do a fantastic job on remakes. You know, you just named two there previously. So yeah, I mean, that's really good, and I think we're going to have to wait a couple of months for this, but then I think there's going to be some big drop of like info, like maybe even they'll say we're remaking the first 3 Metal Gear Solids, or you know what I mean. I think there'll be like a big drop, and we'll be like, oh my god.
I was going to ask you, what would you prefer to see? Because if there's multiple remakes, I mean, 3, that would be a hell of an undertaking. 3 remakes all at once. So I tend to think 2 might be, if there is multiple. You know, would you want to see the first one and the second one, Sons of Liberty? Would you want to see... I think the best entries in the series for me are probably Sons of Liberty 2 and also Snake Eater, the 3rd installment. I mean, it's personal preference, but I suppose if they're remaking it, you kind of feel like they've got to do the first one, haven't they?
Yeah, I agree. It's hard to know, isn't it? I reckon... Go on.
There's the most potential for the first one, I would say, because it's a PS1 game, essentially.
Yes,
so you could really reimagine that and modernise it, but...
Yeah, I don't know. And... Yeah, I mean, the Snake Eater would... Because the thing is, Snake Eater was a very jungle-orientated game anyway, lots of it anyway. And you think, actually, they could take a lot of the assets from MGS 5, if that was available, and, you know, use a lot of that in remaking 3. So, yeah, I don't know. That's the answer. I don't know. There's too many on offer. I mean, I really liked 4. That was one of my favourite ones. But I think that was because it was a bit more futuristic with the active camo and stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't know. It's exciting though. It's really exciting. I'm glad these rumours are still around and that we can be hopeful that there are some games coming, because, you know, I love these games and I'd love to see a brand new one in the series. So, yeah, we'll see how we go.
Bluepoint doing it justice. I'm complete faith in them
100%.
that they'll get something out that we can be proud of, and Kojima could be proud of specifically. The Silent Hill stuff is obviously still very murky. Doesn't sound great. Maybe some development hell there. which is funny, isn't it? Considering Silent Hill is kind of like a hell universe. But yeah, I want to see it. I'm desperate for some more Silent Hill, and I just want it to be in the right hands. So we'll have to see. But second story, move us on, Rich.
Absolutely. So second story, Resi Village info inbound. And this comes courtesy of IGN to start with. So Resident Evil Showcase is going to be on tonight, and that's going to be at, I think, 11 PM in the UK.
When you're watching this, BArcadians, that was yesterday at 11.
So April 15th, so that was yesterday at 11. So we don't know what was in that. Hopefully there's some juicy bits and bobs in that. But on the back of that, PC Gamer had this to say. Resident Evil Village has animals you can slaughter, which is the first for the series. In the above video, which was in this article, courtesy of Game Informer, you can see Ethan Winters shooting fish, pigs, a billy goat and chickens with a pistol. In a horror game where ammunition is scarce, you'd think Ethan would, I don't know, pick the chickens up and twist their necks, or at least melee punch them to death. But no, he pumps the poultry full of lead. As the video explains, once you've slain the beasts and extracted their meat, you can take them to Duke's kitchen, where Duke himself will prepare meals, offering permanent buffs and perks, similar to Breath of the Wild's kind of cooking scenario. For example, if you gather the right ingredients for the bird and beast's pilaf, you then eat it and you'll get a permanent reduction in damage when guarding. The Duke also has an Emporium, God love him, and that's where you'll upgrade weapons, craft ammo and buy stuff. The game's currency can be found on fallen enemies, the undead still use cash, you know, or by simply precious items found throughout the game. One upgrade example is reducing the sway on the sniper rifle or increasing the damage of pistol, all the better for killing fish. And I actually watched this video, and very interesting. It seemed the video that was put together, I think by Game Informer, was very interesting because it showed this chap killing like animals, and then all of a sudden like a zombie thing jumps out at you about 30 odd seconds in, and then at that point I was like, yeah, I'm out. But yeah, it looks good, to be fair. It looks really good, and I like that extra mechanic that they've brought into this, which has not really been seen in a Resident Evil game before, so that's really interesting. What do you make of this, Tabs?
Yeah, I think it's only a good thing. Initially, I thought, they're going for this first-person perspective with the series, the last couple. They're going for this more cinematic, intense design of survival horror. And initially, it sounds very gamified, doesn't it? To put this kind of like system in place, like you say, similar to Breath of the Wild. And then even more so when you read through there about the Emporium and crafting stuff. However, I did see another clip at this week which showed you could see a map on the table, and it almost looks like it's not going to be open world, but it almost looks like it's, semi-open world in as far as you've got multiple places you can kind of walk around and revisit. And with these systems as well, they're not far away from like open world-esque progression systems. So I'm glad, to be honest, that although it probably takes a little bit away from the immersion of the game and the experience, I think it's going to add a lot to the gameplay loop, to the moment-to-moment gameplay and the overarching progression within the game. And they're obviously a bit fast and loose with it, but I think we want to see series like this push forward and try and innovate it and introduce, new strands to the gameplay. And I think you have to applaud them for this. So whether it pays off, in actually how it feels to play, we'll have to wait and see. But I'm excited by it, no doubt about it.
So it sounds like you're going to be making the purchase then?
Yeah, I think this is actually the icing on the cake for me. I was kind of umming and ahhing because I'm not a big fan of the first person point of view. I find it too scary, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I think at this point, it almost sounds a bit open worldy, and I think I can get over the fact that I struggle with these games. I'll just have to have at least 2 beers on hand for every playthrough. And I'll get through it.
Yeah, so, it's exciting. One of our friends is really excited for this. He likes to watch horrors and stuff, so he's all in on something like this. But I mean, it's first person, which is really disappointing because it's yet another game that I'll miss out on. I don't know realistically whether I'd have bought it anyway, even if it was third person. It's the kind of game I like to play with other people, we would do a playthrough of it, me and you, Tabs, or whatever, but yeah, it's good fun anyway. So should we move on to the big story that we're going to talk about?
Yeah, so this one could take up a bit of space. We'll try and bear with us. Basically, the headline is PlayStation's risky new strategy. So this is covering a lot of what we've seen in recent weeks about PlayStation's blockbuster policy, or apparent blockbuster policy. So there's a GamesBeat article. Jeff Grubb put a lot of good stuff together, taken some excerpts out a little bit abstractly. So I'm going to run through these just to help to put some meat on the bone of the story and what's been going on with it in the press for those that haven't seen it. And then we wanted to kind of go through our feelings because we're quite passionate about it. Rich and I, if you haven't already noticed, are quite ardent PlayStation fans. Not fanboys, but just fans. We like the platform, we like the lineage. So here we go. GamesBeat. Some PlayStation fans are really feeling angsty about the company's strategy under Sony Interactive Entertainment boss Jim Ryan, and that is understandable. At the start of the PlayStation 4, Sony embraced indies as a way to fill out the console's release schedule while the company developed its own projects. Now the publisher is far less willing to associate itself with indies. He's actually updated this article since and corrected that a little bit, giving it some more mediation because it's perhaps not quite right now. But anyway, let's move on. And you don't have to wonder if Sony is deliberately keeping indies at a distance. Ryan confirmed that is the company's position. So he's actually come out and said this. There was a time and a place in the early stages of the life of the PlayStation 4 to make statements using indie games, Ryan said in an interview with Games Industry Biz in 2017. It was more about making a statement that we are serious about the indies and that we are doing this and that with the indies. It was just good to talk about it in 2013, 2014. It's less relevant now, is what he said. Moving on. So Sony recently announced as well, it's closing the digital stores, the PlayStation Portable, PlayStation 3 and PlayStation Vita. And Sony continues to forego investment into backwards compatibility solutions. Again, Sony is making these decisions to preserve profitability, but it's also something that a company might decide to do for the players, which is one of their old taglines, even if it were losing money. So Jeff Grubb then goes on to say, Sony should keep making massive games like The Last of Us and God of War, but by emphasizing them above all else, the company is foregoing a chance to come up with creative new ways to find its next big thing. And that next big thing is likely going to be necessary, obviously with the stiff competition they have with Xbox. The company may have to turn to younger and fresher talent to try something new, and that's how it got God of War and The Last of Us in the first place. But the problem is that Sony's strategy could squeeze out that talent. A Bloomberg report last week detailed unrest among some PlayStation studios regarding the focus on the biggest blockbusters. And Jeff Grubb can confirm that I've heard similar tales about angst amongst senior developers at non-Naughty Dog studios. So basically this sets the scene that, I think it goes without saying that there is smoke to the fire of this blockbuster strategy. Jim Ryan himself has said words to that effect, and we've got big insiders like Jason Schreier and Jeff Grubb, fueling that fire as well. So, yeah, suffice to say, Rich and I have a lot to say on the matter. I think we'll round up and we'll loop back to me, my friend, because I've got a proposal, haven't I, that I want to put forward.
Indeed.
But tell me your feelings, mate. Tell me, as a fan of PlayStation.
So, we spoke about this in the week, and so I'll just put some of those opinions across. But we love the games that PlayStation make. We love the God of Wars, The Last of Us. I love Gran Turismo, Uncharted, lots of big franchises that we absolutely love. But the point I said to Tabs was, at some point, those franchises will misstep, or they might lose their relevance, or they might lose their popularity. Maybe the games industry, racing games become less relevant, or action adventures, people just aren't wanting them. Well, at that point,
they just get stale, don't they? Sometimes.
Absolutely, we've seen it with many franchises over the years, and then they'll just disappear. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen with any of these franchises, but there seems to be this scenario at the moment with Sony that these franchises are too big to fail, and I think that's a worrying thought to have to start off with, because it builds complacency. And what do you do as a backup if they do fail? Well, obviously the natural order has been for the last sort of 20 years will be the interesting, insightful, new ideas from all these little independent developers that come out with these games. The big companies will go, that's a good idea. If we expand on that idea to this, can we create a game out of this? And that's how lots of these like clever mechanics that we use in games, that's how lots of them are born out nowadays, or used to be anyway, through these smaller games. And also, people playing their systems will bounce around from there's not a big blockbuster game coming out every week, or every month. So you're having to like go, okay, well, I've got this game this month, but then I'm going to filter around in some smaller games before I go on to my next blockbuster. So I feel like that's the natural order, and that's how it seems like it should be. That's how it would run, and that's been extremely successful for the PS4. And that's one of the reasons, I'm sure, why they sold over 100 million units. To now say all of a sudden, actually, we'll just go all in on the blockbusters, and you'll play 3 a year. Well, what do you play for the rest of the time? It seems like such a strange like decision that they've made. I don't know if you want to add anything in here, Tabs?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take up that. And so essentially, mate, yeah, I agree. Whether we can put this at the door of Jim Ryan, it's hard to say, because surely it's not just him. There's a committee as well to consider. And I did a bit of background check on him, mate, and it looks like he's got considerable experience in the industry with Sony. I think he's been with them since '94 or something.
Wow.
So, it's not like he's come in from a business background, almost like an Amazon job, trying to Amazon their way into the games industry and, try and make a creative pursuit, a creative industry bow to their bidding, because that's the issue. So it's not like he's necessarily coming from that background. But this blockbuster policy to me sounds like you say, it's at risk of really, trying to make a systematic approach, a production line approach to a creative industry, which is just doesn't match up with what we see successful companies do in the past. For me, I think, you tend to get a feel for the developers behind the scenes. They put their heart and souls into these games, they burn out, and then they need a sort of kind of post-development period to gather, to rejuvenate, to get back to their best. And I think a big part of that can be jumping on to smaller projects, to indie titles, developing those ideas, even if sometimes they might go nowhere. I think it's almost a part of that rhythm that helps them, again, get back to their best. Maybe they churn some ideas out in that downtime, which they then take into their next blockbuster title, and it becomes, the God of War of next year or whatever. So for me, it's at odds with what I feel makes good games, and as you point out, what we've seen in the past with their previous platforms. So that's already worrying. We know about Kojima, or we think we know, and that could be another symptom of this problematic strategy that they've taken. And for us, again, that's a massive loss. But just to round it all off, I said to Rich, and I shared with him today, this was my proposal. We've also seen articles in the news this week about PlayStation potentially mustering up some sort of counter punch to the Game Pass. So they're working on some sort of antidote to the Game Pass, a competitor, if you like. So I said to Rich, I got really excited. I was thinking, what would make it compelling for me? So of course, we've got this first kind of strand of the proposition, if you like, which is the PlayStation Studio titles. We know they deliver. We know they've got a strong asset there with a great team of developers who churn out fantastic AAA games. I'm going to propose that we make this kind of strategy going forwards 3-stranded. So the second strand, a trinity, if you like. So the second strand would be a focus on their lineage. So we know we've seen this bad press about them dumping all their old stores off. So there's a real opportunity here to turn the tide of that bad press. And for me, what that could become, if you like, imagine you're loading up your PS5. One of the icons on your cross-media bar is this like PlayStation history symbol. Much like Nintendo have introduced some of their classics from the past on, NES, SNES platforms on the Switch. Maybe you click this and they start to build. Doesn't have to come all in one, but each month they add classic titles via emulation, which I'm sure they can sort out on the PS5. Probably even up to the likes of PS3. I know that's problematic, but probably with the power of the PS5, We've seen the likes of that happening on the PC. So anyway, yeah, we see the PlayStation history, and you've got an archive, an ever-growing archive of, PlayStation classics. And obviously, all the work that they're putting into that could be potentially carried over going forwards to PS6, PS7, because it's all being repackaged in these emulation, which hopefully you could drag and drop at that point. So it's all future-spective as well. And then the third strand to this proposition, you've actually got, I said to Rich, it's very much like we've seen with Roblox, which is this platform which has taken, the games industry by storm, clearly, very popular. And PlayStation has that in a form already. Dreams, as a game that was released, it's in that sort of, it's in a similar sort of shape. And they'd have to expand on Dreams, but imagine they had another icon on the cross-media bar, PlayStation Dreams. And essentially, that's a platform or an ecosystem where gamers, as well as developers, can create smaller indie type projects and games for everybody to share. And maybe there's within that the ability to paywall those games, because obviously people want to get paid for what they produce. That could go to gamers, that could go to developers, maybe within Sony's PlayStation Studios. Between projects, they develop these games. There's an incentive there. You can still earn on it. And you can really go your own way. I think that would do so much for internally the culture within Sony, so much for the gamers, the community, to bring out talent, to share in creative experiences. And like Rich and I have said, some of our favourite games of the last year, Valheim, It Takes Two, for me, Hades, these are all kind of grassroots indie games, really, that have blossomed into some of probably the best games I've played in the last couple of years. So I just think, that kind of tripartite Trinity proposition. Rich said earlier before we started, it seems obvious. We're as I think he put it, numbnuts, gaming numbnuts, who don't have any experience in the industry or position. And to us, this seems obvious that proposition, if PlayStation nailed those three parts, that would be a heck of a proposition to take on Game Pass with. I know I'd be signing up straight off the bat.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
So Rich, round us off. I'm out of breath now, so...
Your
I
passion
think
is inspiring, mate. Your passion is inspiring. Yeah, I mean, another one, and we'll pick up on this a little bit in the everything else. Astro's Playroom. That's the perfect example of, it's a well polished, but that's an indie game. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It pokes fun at itself, and it's such a lot of fun to play. And that's what you don't get more often than not from these blockbuster titles, where you have to invest like time and lots of energy into these massive, grandiose games. And I just feel like without those indie games to sort of, cut through those other big games, you're sort of missing out. So very strange decisions all around here. And hopefully, there's some conversation of why they've made some of these decisions down the line, and we can understand it a bit more. But at the moment, seems a bit strange.
If they came out with a competitor to Game Pass, like I've just described, mate, all is forgiven for me. I'd be like, oh, that's why you closed all the stores down.
Yeah.
That's why you've, I'd totally be like, wow. I'd be really impressed, and I'd be like, Sony, you've got a future here.
Yeah.
If that doesn't happen, though, or at least close to it, I am worried as a PlayStation fan that they are going off the rails, and I feel like Xbox are knocking on the door of being the next market leader with everything we're seeing and hearing from them. And we also know they're potentially courting Sega, not just Kojima. If they snap those up, we're starting to see a real tilt towards market dominance, I think, in the future for Xbox. But mate, enough rattling on. Should we kick off with everything else?
Absolutely. So on the back of me mentioning Astro's Playroom, there's actually a documentary that tells the story of how it went from a tech demo to a fully fledged game. And I haven't seen this yet, but as soon as we finish filming, I'll be going straight there to watch this. And if you are interested in that, it's on the YouTube channel No Clip.
Yeah, fantastic game. If you've not played it, get on it. Next up, Days Gone PC version launches in May with ultra-wide monitor support. So there's PlayStation diversifying again, trying to drum up those sales, although there's not going to be a sequel apparently, so enjoy that one.
Absolutely, and a new PS5 update is live, which also enables external storage for the PS5, along with a host of other things.
Fantastic. I think there's some share play stuff on that as well, Rich, which we might be interested in. But anyway, and then finally we've got Super Nintendo World construction is underway at Universal Studios Hollywood. So maybe we'll get to visit that one day, Rich. Oh, and there was one more thing, wasn't there, mate?
Yes,
do you want to just cover that
one? Yeah, so there was a Nintendo Indie, was it Indie Dev? What was it called? Indie
Direct, I think.
Yeah, Indie Direct, that's it, yeah. They basically just detailed lots of their independent games that were coming. The most notable one for me,
for
anyway,
us,
yeah, for us, I guess, was House of the Dead remake, a game that was very close to our heart. You know, in our younger days, we'd be playing it down the arcade, and then eventually we were playing it on the Dreamcast with the light guns. Looks interesting. I'd like to understand how they're going to do it. Are they going to have some sort of Joy-Con? Are you going to use a Joy-Con as a gun? I hope so. I don't really like the idea of the analog stick. I think that'll take away from the essence of that game. But yeah, that's pretty much what we saw.
So there we go, BArcadians. I'm really feeling the time pressure this week, so I'll end it there. We won't blab on anymore. Thank you as ever for joining us. Don't forget, Fridays, 5 p.m. UK time is when we put out these Gaming News Weekly episodes. Make sure you subscribed, you've rung the bell for notifications to stay abreast of everything we do. Really appreciate if you could smash that like button to help us try and popularise the channel, and drop us a comment to let us know what you think to any of the story pieces we talked about today. We'd love to hear your input and perspective. And I think that'll do us. Another one for the archives.
Stamped and completed.